My name is Peter Woodruff, and I've worked at Bath Iron Works for 29 years as a mechanic and now a designer. Before that, I was a fisherman and an art teacher. So I understand some of the problems that fishermen have with the commons issue. And I'm going to talk about offshore wind because I want to see offshore wind in Maine and built by Maine people. And I think Bath Iron Works and Chinbro and Reed are positioning themselves to be the ones to build the project. I started a petition over a year ago to make sure that if they were going to build offshore wind towers in Maine, that they would be built at Bath Iron Works or a company in Maine for Maine jobs. And it holds a promise of 15,000 jobs, industry-related jobs in the state of Maine, and that would double the workforce of Chinbro, Bath Iron Works, Reed and others. So when you look at what's at stake, I'm going to talk a little bit about the mountaintop removal issue, and I think it's awful. I think our brothers and sisters down in West Virginia are screaming at the mountaintop removal down there, and they're begging for wind towers. And once a mountain is gone, all that carbon, mountains of carbon, are in the atmosphere. So, what was I going to say? Oh, back to wind power. So that's how I feel about mountaintop removal. And I have been out to see the wind towers at Vinyl Haven. I actually went out there and spent a day recording the sound. And I would not live within a mile of wind towers, but I would not live within a mile of the quarry that's right next to it either. It's a working quarry. So that's how I feel. I think that industrial wind needs to be away from people, and it needs to be offshore. And the other issue is wind has always been thought of as just an ephemeral, or a sporadic power source. Well, recently, Alexander Slocum of MIT has come out with a energy holding scheme for offshore wind towers, and it would mean putting huge reservoirs at the base of these towers that excess energy from wind towers, not at peak times, would pump out the chambers, and then during peak times when there is no wind, the pressure from the ocean would drive turbines to produce the power stored in the chambers. So that would extend wind power for instead of burning coal or nuclear power, and that would, in essence, solve that sporadic thing. We have the capacity at Bath Iron Works to build huge wind turbines. 400 feet on a mountaintop, you're talking 600 feet. You're talking the length of a destroyer for ocean energy wind towers. And we have the capacity to do it. And we have the expertise, we have the engineering. As a matter of fact, the University of Maine is working, has a professor, Habib Dagar, who is working indirectly with Bath Iron Works right now. So, when I went to the Ocean Energy Task Force meetings on ocean energy that spanned over a year in Augusta, I met Habib Dagar, and he gave me a card. It said, Professor of Structural Engineering, Bath Iron Works. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's your turn. What I'd like to do is you raise your hand. I'm going to go from one side of the room to the other, alternate between men and women. Short questions, hopefully short responses. We want to get all these folks an equal chance to respond, okay? First question right here.
Thank you. I just wondered if you all know that the same technology, turbine technology that's used on land can be used in water up to 90 feet deep. Oh, and one other thing, I brought charts of the Gulf of Maine. It's very shallow, relatively shallow. The Gulf of Maine is relatively shallow. In case you want to check that out, the charts are here that you can look at to see the depths. Thank you.
Yeah, who wants to respond?
You know, the whole issue of offshore wind, I mean, clearly the wind power in Maine is offshore. There's only two peaks, mountain peaks in the state of Maine, the top of Sugarloaf and the top of Mount Katahdin, that have winds that are comparable to what we find offshore. The efficiency factor when you go offshore for wind is significantly higher than the 25 to 30% efficiency factor that you'll get from these mountaintop wind things. So offshore is a thing that we could look at. One of the nice things about offshore too is that they can be on floating platforms, and therefore they can be removed. It's possible, that's one of the things they're working on, floating platforms that they could be removed very easily. But on mountaintops, once these things are put in and the mountains are, you know, bulldozed over and blasted out, it's permanent, it's irreversible damage. It's quite phenomenal. So I think there is a potential for offshore, but I still think we have a lot to look at in terms of the environmental impacts, in terms of its impacts on marine mammals and birds and things like that as well.
And the impacts on the fishermen.
The impacts on the fishermen are going to be astronomical when the seas warm up, become more acidified, and the coastline is drowned because of using fossil fuels and especially coal.
Anyone on this side? A woman on this side, maybe? Yes, stand up.
Yes, I'm surprised to hear this legislation that was passed by Governor Baldacci. And as a citizen of Maine, I am very upset. And I hope everybody else is, and I hope we do something about it.
Yes.